What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the SPY, the NASDAQ, the QQQs, and the futures. Break down why what I predicted did end up playing out. As I mentioned to you guys, we're likely going to see a squeeze today, and why it actually went even higher than I expected. I'm also going to break down what you should watch for next week and what's going on with the markets right now, and why we will likely see a bit of a pullback before we do see a bullish continuation, in my honest opinion. And before I break anything down about this, before I break down some of the charts, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting real quick. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link down below in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you're guaranteed 7 free stocks. And the best part is, any could be a free Tesla share. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in just 4 weeks. Make sure you check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Now, when it comes to SPY, this thing is actually, and it actually closed up 1.58% for the day, right? In my previous video, I predicted the market might be starting a mini squeeze similar to what we saw in, I think it was like in January, going into the end of January as we got closer to February. And that is basically what's starting to happen right now. Now, what happened was, I told you we'd likely see the market get a nice push up, break above 400, maybe a little bit into the low 400s, 400s to 401. And I thought we'd actually get stopped around 401, maybe 402, get a bit of a pullback and close somewhere around 400, maybe a little lower, but still pretty green. That's what I was predicting. And I also predicted that we'd get a squeeze. I just thought we would go to like 400, 402 by like Monday, 404 by like Tuesday, Wednesday, slowly pushing up, right? I didn't expect this to like explode this much in one day. That was pretty unpredictable. But the bottom line is, I was correct about something, and that is the bullish divergence that actually ended up forming on SPY. You can see right here on the RSI. The RSI formed a higher low relative to this low right here. And then the stock ended up forming a lower low, and we actually got the breakout from there, right? That's what I predicted. I was right about that at least, and so far we're continuing to go. Now, when the market pushes up, you have to remember that the MACD is on this very bullish looking territory. Now that this happened on the hourly time frame, this tells us that there's so much momentum and we're likely going to see a bullish continuation. I do think we're kind of overbought. RSI is at like 73 right now on the hourly time frame, and I do think we're going to see a bit of a pullback. We're going to see SPY cool down a bit, get to 402, maybe around there. It could even go a little lower. I don't know if we're going to come all the way down to fill this gap around like 397. We might not come that low, and we might just, once we pull back a bit, we're going to likely see a bullish continuation, and we're likely going to try to finish filling this gap right here. You can see we started to fill the gap. We actually closed very close to where gap resistance is. We're likely going to try to fill this gap around 406, then 408 going into next week. Now, as awesome as this is, as happy and excited as you are, please don't become too compelled because of this rally. And here's why. The Fed was basically speaking. They did say some hawkish things. They did talk about how there's going to be more tightening. They have to continue to raise rates. There's going to be stress in the financial system. But the market chose to rally off this. They basically, there were Fed speakers that said a 25 basis point rate hike is very likely. The soft landing narrative is back, and they ended up saying the word pause. The Fed may pause soon, so the market's going to rally off of that. Doesn't make sense to me because there's no sign of them pausing just yet. And on top of that, you have to remember CPI comes out on the 14th. This could either make or break this rally. This could help the rally continue, or it's going to completely reverse everything if CPI is too hot. If CPI ends up being too hot, the market's likely going to reverse and start downtrending. This will incentivize the Fed to be more hawkish the week after during the FOMC meeting on March 22nd. So the second half of March is going to be very vital. And as we approach CPI, I do think there is potential for us to continue to rally, but I'm not counting on this rally or guaranteeing it's going to continue until March 14th or after March 14th. All right, so I want to make that clear. Could we keep going? Sure. But we have to be very careful because once March 14th comes out, it could turn this rally into a mega bull trap. Now, What do I believe is going to happen? Once again, I'm anticipating a bit of a pullback to some very important fib levels. I'm going to go into more details about where we're going to pull back in my Sunday video, so I'm not going to break down exactly where. I mean, it's a lot of work. I want to keep this video kind of short, but I could see us pulling back a bit to about 402 or so. Once again, I will go over the Fibonacci retracements in a later video. Uh, as far as the QQQ goes, same thing that I am seeing on it. It's likely going to get a pullback. It might retrace to maybe this gap support, maybe a little bit higher than that, around the mid 290 level. Then it's likely going to get a really nice bounce and try to finish filling this gap around 300. And then we might continue to go for the 303 gap. The QQQ does look like it has more room to go. I told everyone, all right, based off how the market's moving, the market would likely see a bit of a bounce and the VIX would likely start coming down. I called out the 19. We ended up dropping below 19, even lower than I expected, to 18.5. 18.5 is some decent support, but we have stronger support around 17.83. We might see this thing retest the wedge. Maybe it tries to bounce off 18.5, comes back to 19 or so, then it continues to come down to this wedge and might retest it and then try to bounce off that, or it might just, continue to just trade sideways from there. But I am seeing something like that happening on the VIX. As far as, if you want to talk about NEO, it didn't finish filling its gap. It's going to likely pull back a little bit, then continue to fill the gap later on and get a rally, maybe try to get to about $10. That's very possible. On Tesla, I told you all it's likely going to rebound, but I didn't expect Tesla to fill this gap. We came a little bit short. We got stopped around 200, just as I had predicted. And I do believe Tesla could pull back a little bit. It might pull back just a little bit. I don't know if we're going to fill this gap down here first and then get a bounce, or if we're going to come a little short of filling this gap, maybe drop to like the mid 190s, then bounce and continue going from there. That's also very possible. But when you look at the hourly time frame, Tesla has some bullish momentum developing, so it's likely going to continue with the uptrend. It just needs to establish a higher low, a low that's higher than the low that it had at 186, a low that's higher than this one. If it could do that, that's going to be a bullish sign. But pullbacks are completely normal. Now, finally, if we want to go into something else, Apple, man, they just had some very bullish news. I think they just announced the factory coming out in India. I'm going to actually double check on that. Uh, but that's actually some very bullish news. Very bullish news. And now that they're going to be assembling iPhones at a new plant in India, to me, that helps to fuel the rally. Apple has very nice momentum. It's up over almost 4% for the day. I do think it's due for a slight pullback. It might get a retest of this 150, maybe 149.6. That's the 0.236 retracement. I will actually go over that in more detail later. But later, I do see Apple trying to get to this 152. I was talking about this yesterday. I'm sure you guys remember me saying that. Eventually, Apple will try to fill this gap. And then we have another gap all the way up here around this 153.6, which could take Apple to about 154, 155. Once again, causing the market to continue to push up because Apple is a monster. It's very huge, it has very strong momentum right now. This could be a big driver for the QQQ, also for SPY. Amazon, I told you all Amazon would likely get a nice bounce, and my target for Amazon was 95. If it broke 95, I told you all there's this gap around like almost 96. It might even keep going a little bit higher. I mean, I don't know about us going all the way up to 100. That is still on the table, though, right? Still is possible, as crazy as that could sound. NASDAQ, once again, nice bullish momentum that's developing right here. We have a very nice uptrend that's being respected. NASDAQ has the gap way up here. Might try to fill this gap very soon. It could pull back to previous resistance, which is now support, get a bounce, and then try to fill the gap way up here. And other than that, the 10-year treasury yield did exactly what I predicted. I told you all, it's likely going to start to come down and fill the gap down here. That's exactly, I mean, it didn't really fill the gap completely. We kind of have like an island reversal forming. It almost looks like it's about to form like a head and shoulders and start coming down a little lower. We do have another gap in the 39s, two more in the 38s. The yields are likely going to come down a bit because they're not anticipating the Fed to tighten as hard. They're anticipating the Fed, or at least they're kind of reacting very differently to what the Fed has been saying. but this could completely change depending on CPI. All right, so make sure you pay very close attention to CPI. That's going to be the make or break for the rally. So, anyways, I want to thank you all so much for listening. My prediction, my very broad prediction for most stocks out there, or most ETFs, most indexes, is the market's likely going to get a bit of a pullback, cool off its RSI and etc. for a bit, and then we're going to see a bullish continuation, most likely. We have nice momentum. The narrative is shifting, sentiment's becoming more bullish. And I do think we're going to likely see a continuation. But when it comes to the continuation, be very cautious because CPI could change everything. Thank you for listening. The market's to the moon because the long-term future is still very bright. And peace out.